Ever since we relaunched the channel, the number one question, the number one ask has been, will you bring back the ranking series? Will you reboot the ranking series? And I've told you over and over, yes, we will. Well, today, my friends, is the day that it comes back. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Jimmy or Chaos, and welcome to the ranking series. Now, burst weapons are an essential part of Call of Duty. Every Call of Duty game and every new Call of Duty multiplayer typically gives 2 to 3 new ones. But just how many burst weapons are there in COD? And which ones are the best of the best? Well, you don't have to wonder anymore. We're bringing back the massive ranking videos, and we're going to take a trip from COD 4 all the way through Modern Warfare 3 2023 and rank every single burst gun from worst to best. Primary, secondaries, it does not matter as long as it was in multiplayer and it was a burst gun by default. It's eligible for this list. So you let me know what ranking you want to see next. Before we move on, guys, we're giving away a PS5 at 2.8 million subs. That's right. Somebody on this channel that watches these videos is going to win a PS5. It's simple to enter. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you like this video. Comment your Twitter handle. That's important because if you win, I have to be able to get hold of you and follow me over on Twitter. The details are the top pinned comment on the video, and there's a bonus entry in those details as well. Good luck. Go subscribe to the Gaming Vault if you want to see Jimmy or Chaos's take on games, let's plays, full walkthroughs, full cinematic game movies, best moments in gaming. Go over there and subscribe. I hope to see you guys over there. There is a ton of content already up. We already have some of my favorite full game movies up. If you don't know what that is, it's basically an entire let's play of a game, but then it's cut down to the cinematic cutscenes to tell the story without all of the gameplay. But don't worry, we're also going to be starting let's plays. That's right, me, my voice, my commentary on future games that are coming up. So do me a favor, go over to the Gaming Vault, give it a sub, help me grow that channel as well. And now, let's do this. 49 guns. We're going to start off with dead last, and we're going to work our way all the way through this list. From 49 all the way down to 1. At number 49, Advanced Warfare's M16. I remember when this gun was first added. It was somehow even worse than it is today. After a couple patches, it at least became somewhat viable, but with those atrocious iron sights and that inconsistent one-burst kill range, this version of the M16 was one of the most unreliable in COD history. So even though it's been improved since it came out, I think it's the worst. It's a hard one to get, too. At number 48, Advanced Warfare's AMR9. A 5-round burst, SMG. Sounded cool on paper, but in practice, it sucked. Extremely awkward to use because of how long it had to hold on to the target in order to have a decent time to kill. Those bursts, the time between bursts, it wasn't good. If you didn't get one burst, you were almost guaranteed to get killed before you pulled the trigger a second or a third time, which basically means it's useless in fights with multiple enemies. Bad doesn't cover it. It was awful. At number 47, Modern Warfare 3, 2011, the M16A4. It's honestly really hard to make the M16 a bad weapon in a Call of Duty game, which is why it's so amazing to me that it's happened more than once. The 2011 M16 was almost unusable, slow, inconsistent, especially in a game like Modern Warfare 3 that was filled with amazing rifles. This version of the M16 was terrible. It would often get you 4 to 5 hit markers before dropping the target, all with some bouncy side-to-side recoil for whatever reason. Yeah. At number 46, Ghost PDW. 3-round burst pistol, widely known for its decent damage for a sidearm, but awkward handling and pathetically slow rate of fire. The burst came out around 750 rounds per minute. That's respectable, but it had a delay between bursts. The overall rate of fire tanked all the way down to the mid-400s, which made it bad. Also had this teeny tiny magazine that could only barely be made better with extended mags, and overall, it just wasn't the kind of gun you wanted in your pocket in a game like Ghost. And speaking of Ghost, at number 45, Ghost MSBS. Maybe I'm biased here, but I think the MSBS is kind of trash after the initial balancing patch. I know. At launch, it was the most powerful thing in the world. It was busted. But after Infinity Ward nerfed it, they nerfed it down to the tier. I mean, they nerfed it down to the bottom for good reason. It's not that the MSBS is a bad weapon on paper, but it's certainly a bad weapon in COD Ghost where there's a ton of fully automatic weapons that can two-shot you with insane fire rates. It's a 3-round burst, high damage, decent fire rate. It just wasn't going to get you anywhere if you were going up against the Honey Badger or the MTAR X. So you may think putting it this low is harsh, but ultimately, I think it deserves it. It was one of the hardest nerfs in COD history. And once the MSBS was patched, I don't think anybody ever picked it up again, to be honest with you. At number 44, the Black Ops 4 RK7 Garrison. I know, it has a fan club, but if we're talking stats, it wasn't very good. Hear me out. Unlike most of the other burst weapons on this list today, the RK7 wasn't actually capable of a one burst kill due to the low damage and the higher health in Black Ops 4, and I know. It was a pistol, and pistols in this game weren't intended to be primaries, but at the same time, it was frustrating to use this gun that looked like the M93 Raffica, sounded like the Raffica, and yet had a fraction of the damage of the Raffica. It wasn't intended to be an awesome weapon, I know that, but that doesn't excuse it for the low place that it earned today. At number 43, COD World War II's Itra Burst. Now, putting a 4-round burst weapon like this in a game like COD World War II was already weird, and I don't think many people used the burst after a couple matches because it wasn't worth it. It was fast, handling was decent, and the time to kill was good in theory, but what got you in trouble was that burst delay and the meta of COD World War II as a whole. The time between bursts felt like an eternity. With how dominant the full auto rifles and SMGs were in this game, a burst weapon with a long delay, it could not keep up. I guess I'll say this gun wasn't truly awful, and we're probably not out of the bottom tier at this point, but it's still not getting any higher than 41 for me. But it's still not getting any higher than 43 for me. At number 42, Black Ops 2, the SWAT 556. This is a weapon I've gone back and forth on. I've flipped, I've flopped, I've teetered, I've tottered. Now, the SWAT is undeniably outclassed by the M8 in basically every category, but that doesn't mean it didn't have anything going for it. The damage was consistent, the recoil was easy to control, and the handling speeds were good. The reason it got dropped down to number 42 on the list is the fact that the fire rate could sometimes get you in trouble since it was slow enough for people to bob and weave between the shots, and then on top of that, like I said before, it was completely outclassed by the M8A1. Not only was it an average weapon at best, there was no reason to use it over the other burst rifle in Black Ops 2. I think 42 is a fair spot. At number 41, Modern Warfare 2 2022, the M16. I admit, I may be biased against this gun because I'm very biased against this game, but I don't have a very positive memory of it. It was standard. Had some nice attachments, but ultimately with how slow and campy Modern Warfare 2's multiplayer was, you were almost always at a disadvantage with a burst weapon because you couldn't really react as quickly as someone could with a fully automatic. I'm going to let it stay mid-tier in this ranking, but honestly, I considered moving it lower. At number 40, the Vanguard Itra Burst. Now, this version of the burst was more or less the same as the COD World War II version, but it has fatal flaws. It wasn't bad, solid stats on paper, but at the end of the day, a burst weapon like this just isn't going to keep up with the insane fully automatic weapons in COD Vanguard, all of which could be fitted with 10 attachments. Now, there were some cheesy builds, but none of them were even close to being the meta, and here it lies. At number 39, the Advanced Warfare IMR. The burst weapon that everybody forgets about. I've always had a soft spot for the IMR because it always felt like Sledgehammer's answer to the popularity of the MAA1, and for a 4-round burst, it was not bad. Wasn't the best choice in the game where people were bunny hopping everywhere and changing direction midair, but ultimately, I think it was a fun gun. It's not great, but it was fun. At number 38, Modern Warfare 3 2023, the FR556. I've heard some people say this gun is underrated. I've also heard people say it's the worst rifle in the game. I don't know which way to go here. On paper, it's good, but this is also a 3-round burst rifle in Modern Warfare 3, one of the sweatiest COD games in recent years, so that doesn't bode well. I think 38 out of 47 is fair, but if I'm wrong on this one, I want you guys to tell me in the comment section. At number 37, the Modern Warfare 3 2023 Renetti. Same situation. I admit, I'm not as familiar with Modern Warfare 3 as I am with classic CODs, but looking at gameplay, reading the stats on COD Wiki, I think the Modern Warfare 3 Renetti belongs somewhere in this vicinity. Good weapon to have in your back pocket, but it's not about the breaking meta or anything. I mean, I'm going to put it at number 37. All things considered, probably the lower half of mid-tier, if that sounds fair. And I know the argument's going to be, oh, you can make this amazing build. You can make a crazy build with any gun. That argument doesn't hold. At number 36, the Black Ops 3 Rift E9. 2-round burst energy pistol. Really cool, and it was amazing at taking down kill streaks for some reason, but one-on-one in combat, those slow-moving projectiles and relatively slow rate of fire meant you were frequently losing fights simply because your shots weren't connecting and your enemy was just moving back and forth in between your blast. If you landed those 2 shots, it was always a kill. That was nice. But in practice, it was very difficult to use consistently. For that, I think it was mid-tier in the grand scheme of COD burst weapons. At number 35, Black Ops 2 Cheekum CQB. I've got a huge smile on my face. I know some of you swore by it. Some of you still swear by it. I can't get behind it. I can get behind the idea that the Cheekum wasn't nearly as bad as people said it was and was overall a statistically decent weapon, which is why it's ranking in the mid-30s instead of 40s. But ultimately, it's right where it belongs. It did have potential if you were willing to put in the time, but the fact of the matter is, most people weren't, especially when there was other legendary weapons at your disposal in Black Ops 2. The fart cannon ends at 35, and I think that is beyond fair of me. At number 34, the Modern Warfare Remastered Procolot. You thought we'd forget it, didn't you? Didn't you? Nope. It was added to the Modern Warfare Remastered supply drop system, much to the anger of COD community as a whole, but opinions on that aside. It was mid-tier, basically serving as this game's equivalent of the M93 Raffica or maybe the B23R. 3-round burst pistol, moderate damage, could get you out of trouble, but the movement speed of COD 4 and that relatively low damage made it pretty middle of the road instead of something epic memorable like those other pistols I mentioned. And we will talk about those pistols, but it's much later. At number 33. Black Ops 4's S6 Stingray. Now, when it was added to BO4, it broke the game. I mean, it had explosive rounds. Yeah, it was overpowered. Now, everybody else on the map was having to hit enemy players 4 to 7 times to kill them. The Stingray was fast-firing 2-burst rifle with minimal recoil. It was more or less insta-killing anyone who got in front of it due to those explosive rounds. Treyarch did nerf the Stingray shortly after that. And if you boot up Black Ops 4 today, it is a fun but niche weapon that isn't nearly as powerful as it once was. I might be ranking it a little low on this list due to that massive drop-off from the nerf, but I think it's a mid-tier weapon. At number 32, the Infinite Warfare Widowmaker. 2-round burst sniper, super unique, and even though sniping in Infinite Warfare wasn't popular, I think this gun was decent for what Infinity War was going for. The damage was consistent, the handling speeds were pretty quick, and that reload animation, it was fast. It was a nice touch. The reason it's at number 32 is simply due to the game. The game it was in. IW didn't have much of a sniping scene at all, and if you were going to snipe, you weren't going to snipe with a 2-round burst weapon instead of a proper bolt action, but it was cool, and it was a first of its kind. At number 31 today, Black Ops Cold War, the Carve 2. Now, the Carve 2 was a tactical burst rifle that was meant to go up against the AUG and the M16, but put simply, that was never going to happen. It wasn't a bad weapon by any means, but it also did not stand out much compared to other weapons in the game. It did its job well enough, and it was pretty reliable. But we're also still in that mid-tier section of weapons in the video. I promise. We're going to get to some really solid weapons soon, but we have to get through this list. At number 30, Infinite Warfare's Hailstorm. 3-round burst revolver wasn't as good as a lot of people gave it credit for, but that doesn't mean it was bad. We're in the mid-tiers, like I said. Keep it in mind, but I always thought the Hailstorm was underrated. The damage was consistent. There were a few ways you could kit it out to be a primary weapon. That long reload animation could get you in trouble, I know. And I know the ammo capacity was low, but man, did it have damage. It did. Underrated sidearm in my opinion. Definitely a solid weapon to have in your back pocket. At number 29, Black Ops Cold War, the AUG. I know I just mentioned this gun a couple entries ago, and I may have sounded like I was going to put it in the top tier, but looking back at Cold War's AUG, I think it was upper mid-tier, at least in the multiplayer. People have a super fond memory of this gun because of how amazing it was in Warzone for a few months, but in multiplayer, it wasn't nearly as dominant. I would argue it wasn't even the best burst rifle in the game, but it was fun to use. It was above average. 29 is a fair place. At number 28, Black Ops Cold War, the KSP-45, another burst weapon in Cold War, and it was one that several players absolutely swore was top tier. The KSP was a 3-round burst SMG, pretty amazing damage per shot stats, capable of a 1-burst kill if you aimed high and stuck to close range, but it was also awkward to use. And it certainly took a lot of getting used to in order to use effectively, which could not be said about a lot of guns in the game. If you couldn't spray and pray to some extent in Black Ops Cold War, you probably weren't going to have a good time. I think overall, it was one of the better burst SMGs out there, but it's still probably number 28. At number 27, Black Ops 4's ABR 223. Now, this 3-round burst rifle was beefy. It could deal some impressive damage if you were consistent with your shots. Much like some of the other Black Ops 4 burst weapons we've talked about, the ABR was a good gun on paper, did have a fan club, but it ultimately suffered from being a burst weapon in a game that's played how Black Ops 4 was played. With that being said, still one of the better burst weapons in BO4, and a lot of people liked it for the consistency. It wasn't the best gun for playing aggressively, but if you were someone who liked to hunker down on objectives and be a bit of a tank, the ABR had you covered. At number 26, Infinite Warfare's R3K. I think this was one of the more underrated burst rifles from COD history because it seemed like people only remember the full auto epic variant, but the standard 3-round burst version was actually really good. If you didn't know, the R3K was a bullpup laser weapon that had really good accuracy and it had a really good time to kill if you hit your shots. Unfortunately, burst weapons as a whole struggled in Infinite Warfare due to the movement system, but all things considered, it was decent. Now we arrive at the top 25. Here's where things turn the corner a little bit. We start getting into the good stuff. At number 25, Modern Warfare 2019's FR556. Believe it or not, the FR556 was a top-tier gun in the Modern Warfare beta, but once we had a chance to play around with the full multiplayer, master the movement, it fell down the tier list despite still having a great time to kill. Had a relatively long delay between bursts, which could often get you in trouble if somebody was slide canceling around the map, making it hard to get consistent one-burst kills. It was still a decent weapon. It was by no means bad, but I do think it's interesting just how far this one fell down the power rankings as Modern Warfare's lifespan went on, because I'm not kidding when I say it was downright busted in the beta. Number 24, the Infinite Warfare RVN. 2-round burst energy rifle had some decent killing potential, but the main selling point was the fact you could snap it in half, turn it into an akimbo melee weapon that would instantly kill anyone it touched. It was pretty fun to goof around with, but I don't think anybody was actually playing Infinite Warfare at that time, and they would probably, if they were, they would tell you it was probably mid-tier at best. At number 23, Modern Warfare Remastered's PKPSD9. 3-round burst SMG, pretty unique addition to the classic COD 4 multiplayer, which didn't even have a burst SMG to begin with. It's basically like having a little pocket M16 with you, but not nearly as consistent with the killing power or the laser-like accuracy. It was fun to goof around with, not a bad gun. It probably should have been lower. At number 22, Modern Warfare 2 2009 M16A4. Infinity Ward knew they had to nerf the M16 going into the second Modern Warfare game, but even though the rifle was toned down from COD 4, the 2009 version is still pretty good. It's not nearly as dominant as the original, but it still had great killing potential and some very, very helpful attachments. It wasn't the best burst weapon in the game, but it was a lot of fun and it was totally viable in multiplayer. At number 21, the Black Ops 4 M16. As far as M16s go, the BO4 version was solid. Wasn't too crazy. It was super strong, though, if you knew what you were doing. It seemed to be this nice sweet spot for the M16 to call home, which that's not hard to do. Stronger than average, but took some getting used to. I think 21's a fair spot for it. It was actually kind of hard to rank this one. At number 20, the Advanced Warfare ARX-160. It first appeared in Ghost as a fully automatic rifle. It was brought back in AW as a 3-round burst for some reason. While that damage wasn't amazing, man, that accuracy and fire rate made up for it. The time to kill was good. The fire rate was fast enough you weren't going to lose to people bunny hopping. You weren't. Overall, it was probably a pretty average COD burst weapon, but it was still nowhere near a bad choice. At number 19, the Black Ops M16. The M16 was one of the earliest unlocks in the original Black Ops. While it wasn't as powerful or as consistent as the COD 4 or the Modern Warfare 2 versions, it was still a very, very popular choice because of the handling. It also had really forgiving fire rates. It wasn't going to be as much as a one-burst machine as its older brothers were, but it was fun to use. It was a great choice for leveling up quickly in Black Ops. At number 18, Black Ops Cold War, the Diamatti. The Diamatti pistol was a hit in Cold War's game community. The power in Warzone, consistency in multiplayer. When it comes to sidearms in Black Ops Cold War, it was one of the most popular thanks to the fantastic killing power and the abundance of awesome attachments that you could make it into a super cheesy loadout if you knew what you were doing. Very strong, very reliable. That's really what you want from a pistol, I think. The damage was a bonus on top of that. Cherry on top. At number 17, Black Ops 4, the Damon 3XB. I think this was the very first burst SMG that the community universally agreed was good. In fact, the 3XB was very solid. If you knew what you were doing and put in some time to get good with the handling and the burst timing, it was good. The time to kill was good, and if you stayed on target and the recoil wasn't too hard to get used to, you would dominate. Plus, the burst delay was quick. Made it a lot better in the DPS department than a lot of burst SMGs have been over the years. And speaking on burst SMGs from Black Ops, at number 16, Black Ops 3, the Pharaoh. 4-round burst submachine gun. A lot of people hated it because it was awkward to handle, but a lot of people loved it. It was basically a pocket version of the M8A7. The range was solid for an SMG, and the delay between bursts was very quick. It wasn't going to punish you if you didn't get that one burst kill. I didn't enjoy this SMG. but I do understand why people liked it and gravitated toward it. It's a cult classic weapon. It is, for a reason. Now we arrive at the top 15. Modern Warfare 3 2011, the Type 95. Did you know this gun was completely overpowered when the game came out, but hardly anybody remembers it because it was so quickly patched and overshadowed by the other guns? The Type 95 was an amazing burst rifle. It had a ton of similarities to the COD 4 M16, but obviously not quite as good. It was incredible on launch day, but it was quickly nerfed. And once people figured out how insane the ACR 6.8 was, the Type, it got forgotten. I didn't forget it. It's here. It was nutty, and it sucks that it was overshadowed because of the ACR, but it is what it is. This is one of those cases where I think this gun was way better than the community realized, but since it wasn't as good as the top-tier assault rifle, which was the ACR, it got forgotten. At number 14, Black Ops Cold War M16. This is one of my favorite M16s in COD history, and I'm someone that really didn't play much Black Ops Cold War, at least not at the start. But the Cold War M16 is beefy, consistent, super customizable. You can make it fit any role. If you wanted it to be this super light and rush around, you could. If you wanted to keep it bulky on your side and amazing distance, you could. It had all the best traits of previous versions of the weapon, topped off with the damage. It wasn't quite overpowered, but it was frustrating to go up against. At number 13, the Black Ops 4 Swordfish. It was more or less the Black Ops 4's version of the MAA-1. 4-round bursts, solid handling, firing speeds were good, got popular with the community because of the high skill ceiling and the insane DPS potential if you actually practiced with it. Now, obviously, I don't think it was better than the actual M8s in Black Ops history. We'll talk about those soon, but the Swordfish got close. I think it's worthy of cracking into the top 15. Not quite top 10, but close. At number 12, the Black Ops G11. This gun was weird, but it was worth getting good with. It was a huge rifle. It was strange. Had one of the strangest reload animations ever put in a game, but it also had a huge default magazine and a ridiculous time to kill and no recoil. If you knew how to play the spacing game, the G11 would just dominate. It could compete with the FAMAS and the Galil all day. Just take the scope off. At number 11, the Black Ops 3 XR2. I always thought this gun was underrated. It was a 3-round burst rifle, had perfectly vertical recoil, which made it really easy to get headshot kills, since aiming at the center of someone's chest would cause that third shot to kick up and pop him in the head. The XR2 with the high caliber attachment was a headshot machine. I think a lot of people slept on this one because it was overshadowed by the M8A7. But if you're still playing Black Ops 3, which apparently a lot of you are, go give it a try if you haven't picked it up in a while. Now we arrive at the top 10. Infinite Warfare's Rajan EMX. Hope I said that right. I feel like this gun comes up in conversation every once in a while, but it's never really a universally liked weapon, mainly because Infinite Warfare wasn't exactly a universally liked game. But if you were paying attention to this era of COD, you would know the EMX. You would, in my opinion, is probably one of the best bursted SMGs in COD history, if not the best. The damage values were good. No, they weren't. They were insane. The fire rate was nutty, and the handling trait fit perfectly with the movement system of IW. That's my fancy way of saying if you knew how to move in this game, the EMX was completely broken in your hands. It was amazing. If you didn't play Infinite Warfare, you quit before this gun was added to the game, go look up some gameplays with it because it was insane that this gun got out the door and never got patched. At number 9, Black Ops 3's P08. I believe this was the first burst sniper in COD history, and it's still hands down the best. Granted, there hasn't been that many burst snipers in the franchise so far, but the P08 had a pretty huge fan base, and it's not hard to see why. I remember Pomage sniping with this thing. There was a delay between pulling the trigger and the shots coming out, meaning you had to stay on target for longer, and it was a higher skill weapon, but each of the 3 bullets that it fired had the power to instantly kill someone, making the P08 capable of some insane clips. It was a high skill weapon, like I said, but if you got the hang of it, it was ridiculous. At number 8, the Black Ops 3 RK5. Of all the 3-round burst pistols in COD history, this is my favorite. Now, the damage per shot was on the lower side, but it was a ton of fun to use because of the lightning fast handling and that high fire rate. You could take full advantage of it. If you got good with Black Ops 3's movement, you would dominate. Had so much potential if you were willing to put in the time to get good with it, and I think it's deserving of the number 8 spot. I know a lot of people sleep on it today. This is one of the best all-time burst pistols out there. At number 7, Black Ops 3, the M8A7. Wasn't as good as its older brother, but the Black Ops 3 M8 was really good. I mean, the killing power, it was satisfying to use. Hearing all 4 hit markers connect one after another was pretty awesome. That recoil, what recoil? There wasn't any. It wasn't hard to get some cheesy kills at range. A super powerful weapon that really rewarded you for getting the hang of its quirks. At number 6, Black Ops 3, the M16. It was added to the game rather late in the life cycle, but if you were lucky enough to pull it from a supply drop, it was probably one of your main go-to guns. It was busted. The insane range on this thing, it could easily one burst from across the entire map on every single map in Black Ops 3, and it had a high fire rate, and it had no recoil. It was an S-tier weapon in Black Ops 3, for sure. At number 5, Black Ops 2, the B23R. This has to be one of the best pistols in Call of Duty history, and it's kind of a shame that it's overshadowed by the fully automatic Cat 40 because the B23R was just as good. 3-round burst pistol, insane fire rate, amazing damage per shot, super fast handling, super fast reload speeds, tons of attachments. You could put a tactical knife on it, a massive extended mag, even in a Kimbo option. I love this pistol, and I would make the argument it was actually better than the Cat 40 in a lot of ways. At number 4, the Black Ops 2 M8A1. This isn't just one of the best burst weapons in COD history, it's one of the best weapons, period. This 4-round burst could drop targets faster than they could possibly react, and the fire rate was very, very high for a burst weapon. The M8A1 was one of the competitive weapons of choice in Black Ops 2. It became an icon of the series as a whole, definitely legendary tier. And now we arrive at the top 3. Modern Warfare 2 2009 M93 Raffica. I got some heat putting this high up in a video not too long ago, and I don't get it. This little 3-burst pistol somehow had the same damage profile as a full-size M16 rifle, but it also had handling speeds that were lightning quick, no recoil. Some people decided to use the M93 as their primary weapon instead of one of the actual burst rifles in Modern Warfare 2, and I get it. This was the first time in COD history that a pistol really made you think twice about how good a secondary weapon could actually be. At number 2, the Modern Warfare 2 2009 FAMAS. I have called this one of the best guns in COD history before, and I stand by it. It was basically just the COD 4 M16 with a bunch of fancy new attachments. That said, I'm not going to give it the number 1 spot today because it wasn't quite as dominant. The COD 4 M16 has a reputation because there's no competing with it, but the Modern Warfare 2 FAMAS had plenty of viable counters like the ACR and all the other ridiculous Modern Warfare 2 guns. But for its insane statistical power and that status, it gets the number 2 spot. If you used it back in the day, you're shaking your head yes with me. And if you've made it to the end of this video, you have arrived at number 1, the absolute best burst gun in COD history. The COD 4 M16A4. Many people call this the original overpowered COD gun, and you know what? You're right. 0 recoil. Could one burst from across the map if you were using stopping power as a perk, which everybody was. Now, the COD 4 M16 greatly outclassed everything in COD 4, and when the game was remastered in 2016, the M16 spam was some of the craziest in COD history. The killing power of the original M16 was some of the most insane in the entire franchise, and since there was basically no counter to it, you probably knew it was going to be ranked this high. I'm going to stick to it. I really think this is the best burst rifle in COD history. I'm willing to hear opposing sides, but I don't think you'll ever see a burst weapon dominate the meta as hard or as long as the COD 4 M16 did. And for that, I give it the number 1 spot. Thank you for coming on the journey with me, everybody. Let me know what ranking topic you want to see next, and I'll see you guys soon.